The timing, Alzheimer's obviously is it's known that there were some cases of dementia documented all the way back in the early 1900s. In fact, the guy, Alzheimer, was operating back in those days, and the disease, got his name. But it's not really until the 1970s that the numbers of Alzheimer cases started to really escalate. I mean, you can actually track it because the CDC has a lot of data now in terms of the escalation of Alzheimer's. That really started, the curve started going up, and it got steeper and steeper by the late 1970s, 1980s, 1990s. So it has continued going very, very sharply up. But pre-1970, Alzheimer's disease was not that common. I mean, it was common. Now, if you talk to somebody at the CDC, they'll say, okay, well, we did change the definition of what constitutes Alzheimer's around that time. And, that possibly is one of the reasons. But it goes way, way beyond that, because we're talking, hundreds and hundreds of percent increases and escalating over time. Also, the aging of the population, you'll hear these explanations that the aging of the population, people are living older, longer now. But that's still, even if you factor all of those factors in, you still get dramatic increases of this phenomenon, Alzheimer's phenomenon, starting in the 1970s. Now, should mention that, one of the things that I tracked in Brain Trust was that there was really sort of some remarkable experiments being done by the National Institutes of Health in the 1950s. And there was a guy called Carlton Gajdusek who actually won the Nobel Prize for his discoveries. But what he figured out was that there was a tribe in Papua New Guinea called the Foray. They were cannibals, and one of the ways they sort of marked the rituals that they marked the death of one of their tribespeople was by eating them. And Carlton Gajdusek discovered that there was this tribe had come down with a bizarre brain disease that they call Kuru. And so he actually was kind of like a cowboy out there. I mean, nobody was regulating or overseeing him, but he was an NIH scientist. So he started carving up these people and essentially getting the brains of these cannibals who were dying from this mysterious disease, shipping the brains back to the National Institutes of Health. And actually the brains were shipped to Fort Detrick in Maryland, which is still the center of biological warfare investigations in the United States. And so these brains were accumulating in Fort Detrick. So this all happened in the late 1950s. So throughout the 1960s, they were trying to figure out what this infectious entity that was killing these tribespeople, because it was obvious something infectious they were eating. And the cannibals who ate the dead people would all in turn come down with this mysterious brain degenerative disease that we now know as mad cow disease. But bottom line is the scientists at the NIH, they got this facility in Patuxent, Maryland, and began injecting a whole bunch of different animals, chimpanzees, deer, cattle, mice, rats, you name it, to see if this disease was transmissible. So bottom line is that over time, to put it mildly, all of the security, all of the sort of biosafety level, none of that existed back in the early 60s. So a lot of these animals escaped. And so one of the hypotheses is by the sort of late 1960s, early 1970s, these prions had transmitted through the food chain, especially to deer, because chronic wasting disease in deer is a highly infectious form of this aberrant protein that goes right through the herds. So bottom line is that it transmitted through the country, And so the escalation of all of this stuff, including cow mutilations beginning in the late 1960s, the rise of dementia that happened in North America in the 1970s, all of these kind of co-located in time around the same time. So again, we went through the exercise of joining the dots.